Well, good afternoon, everyone. The H1B Guy Live here today with MobSquad President and COO Arif Khimani. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't already, to please subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube and like this video so that I can continue to produce more content like this for you. I also wanted to mention the H1B Guy offers a variety of consulting services. I help businesses and individuals solve complex work authorization issues in the recruitment process while bringing awareness to employment-based immigration benefits. If I can help you, please reach out. I'd love to hear how. And you can book an appointment directly with me via the h1bguy.com. Today's live stream is proudly brought to you by MobSquad. If you're a technology professional facing U.S. visa work-related challenges and your OPT visa is about to expire and you were not selected in the recent H-1B lottery, our partner MobSquad has a solution. Join the squad. And also by PERM-Ads.com, the industry leader in providing a seamless experience for employers and immigration attorneys, providing complex work authorization issues in the recruitment process. Check out PERM-Ads.com. And also by Syndesis and Path to Canada, the ideal plan B for high-skilled immigrants currently located in the U.S. whose status may be uncertain. Well, I'm very excited to have Arif join me here this afternoon. Today is May 11th, and it's a little after 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I was recently introduced to the great folks at MobSquad a little over a month ago, right towards the end of the H-1B lottery. And as rumors and reports started to circulate about the massive amount of registrations that was received in this year's lottery, as we've come to find out, over 480,000 applications were received, with a little over 127,600 individual names selected, giving about a 26% probability. And for those of you who keep up with immigration in the news, the Wall Street Journal just put out an article yesterday, and that article is titled "The Tech Industry Warns That More Remote Jobs Are Headed Out of the U.S." The reason for that: worker shortages, limited immigration in the U.S. may favor Canada and elsewhere. Now more than ever, if you are a high-skilled immigrant in the U.S., whether you are on an H-1B visa, or you are on an OPT visa, or if you're even outside of the US, but you're seeking an opportunity to come here to North America, this conversation today with Arif, I think, is going to be one that you really want to take interest in and listen to. MobSquad has a very unique offering that designates and differentiates them from some of their other competitors out there. So I wanted to have Arif on today to tell us about MobSquad and tell us a little bit about himself and his journey. So we're going to get into all of that here over the course of the next 45 minutes or so. But I wanted to turn it over to you, Arif. How you doing today?
Good. Thanks so much for having me on. Excited to
Awesome.
do this, and I think you're right. The timing is perfect.
Yeah, it's really interesting as we start to hear March here in the US. There were 4.5 million people that quit their job, but there were 11.5 million open job postings. But yet, when we look at like our high skilled immigration and the amount of resources that we continue to bring into the US, that number remains very limited. And if we also look at the documented dreamer story, which you may not be fully aware of, but those are children of high skilled immigrants that were brought here, legal childhood arrivals, that it's an estimated 10,000 of those individuals self-deport annually. And we're talking about US educated and raised. And so now more than ever, we continue to hear this very growing sentiment about the need here in the US for immigration reform. And there's about 7 different bills out there that address various pieces of the immigration issue. But since I launched this channel back in 2020, one of the biggest things I've talked about has been a merit-based immigration system, and how our friends to the north in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the UK to a certain extent, now more than ever have continued to become just as much of an attractive destination. And one of the biggest things that I've talked about since I launched this platform is that if you come here pursuing the American dream, you need to have another option. We've talked about Canada be a plan B for a long time. But I think now more than ever, you look at the number of jobs that have been increased in Canada, and very clearly, Canada has become a plan A for a lot of other individuals. So before we get into all of that, RF, if you could tell us just a little bit about yourself, um, how you got to where you are with Mob Squad, and then maybe get into how Mob Squad came to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just give you a little bit on myself. So I was born and raised in Vancouver, in Canada. So very familiar with the systems up here. Also studied in Canada. Spent some time working at Procter and Gamble in their finance group, and then moved to Amazon in Vancouver, operations finance. So got to see some of what you're talking about firsthand, where a lot of that tech challenge that Amazon was facing, they were trying to solve with growing pretty rapidly in Canada. And as part of that role, I came across Mob Squad. I knew the founding team relatively well from before, and they had this idea that just seemed extremely interesting and very pertinent to our current time. So a bit of backstory there. I mean, Mob Squad basically identified that there was this massive opportunity for to help solve the technology talent shortage through an innovative solution in Canada in a couple of ways. So the first being recognizing that there are thousands of workers in the U.S. that are on OPTs or STEM OPT visas or on H-1B visas, and every year with this lottery, more than half, and this year, almost 75%, were not going to get selected in the lottery, and so you have this huge group of people who either want to get into the U.S. or want to be able to stay in the U.S. but can't do so because they're not able to obtain or extend their visa. And so we thought, the company thought, what if there was a way so that these people could continue working with the companies that they're working with? The companies can continue to have support from those technology workers, but we just do it in Canada, where we're able to get people in on a relatively expedited basis and have them become permanent residents and citizens within a reasonable period of time. Um, and then secondarily, for companies that are looking to grow their team, where you need AI engineers, cybersecurity engineers, machine learning engineers, all the hardest to fill roles, because we're able to bring people to Canada from anywhere in the world. What if we were to build those teams in Canada again for those clients? And we would just support them and take care of everything that's needed in Canada through Mob Squad. So that's kind of where the idea came from, and it's grown quite extensively since, as we've been able to help countless engineers and dozens of clients with this solution. And COVID obviously helped some of that too, which we'll get into later as well.
So the company started in 2018, is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
So a little over 4 years, you guys have been at this, and I would imagine that the last 2 years probably seen a very significant interest in your offerings, and I would imagine that's led to a lot of the rapid growth that you guys have experienced. Can you talk to me a little bit about your ideal sort of uh, client, right? On the candidate side and also on the employer side. Um, who is it that would be interested in Mob Squad specifically?
Yeah, so let's start with the candidates because I think that's probably a lot of the audience that you have are people on H1Bs or OPTs trying to get H1Bs, and from our perspective, candidates that are ideal are those that, at least for this stream, are people that are in the U.S. and struggling with some visa related issue. Either they didn't win the H1B lottery and on their last year of their STEM OPT, couldn't extend their H1B, have been on the green card list for 10 or 15 or 20 years, depending on where you're from, or have a spouse who's not able to work in the U.S. because they couldn't get the H-40 AD or some situation like that, which is causing them some struggle with being able to remain in the U.S. And in that case, if you're a technology worker, we encourage you to reach out to us because we're able to then try and partner with the company that you're working with. And so from the engineer perspective, they get to continue working with the company that they're working with just from Canada. And we would support them and their family coming to Canada first on a work permit that's done on an expedited basis, and then eventually permanent residency, generally within a year, and citizenship thereafter.
Mhm.
And in terms of clients, this tends to be tech companies all across the US. So, with the caveat, it doesn't tend to be like the Amazons and the Googles and the Facebooks of the world, because they have offices in Canada and they're already doing this at
Right.
scale. But if you're at, if you're a startup or a fast growing tech company in the US, you may not have operations in Canada, because doing all of what Amazon and Google and Facebook are doing at subscale is just a lot of work, like figuring out
Hmm.
benefits, figuring out payroll, figuring out remittances and taxes, office space, all the logistics of operating in Canada. And that's exactly where we come in, is because we would
Hmm.
handle all of that for the company and for the engineers directly.
So it's a soup to nuts, if you will, per se. Like the only thing that changes is the individuals working remotely in Canada for Mob Squad, in turn remaining with the employer here in the US. And is that just tech specifically that we're focused on, or are we looking at the science, engineering, mathematics, that other piece of the STEM equation too, or are we interested in individuals with that sort of background as well?
Yeah, so I would say we're primarily tech focused, because the expedited work permit stream, which is called the global talent stream in Canada, which we have access to, is fairly concentrated in technology related occupations in terms of who's allowed to come in through that stream.
Mhm,
But having said that, there are some alternatives, and it is a relatively broad definition of technology workers. So if you're not sure, like if you are, in data science or business systems analyst, or things that are may not be exactly software engineering but are within the realm of tech, we encourage you to still reach out, because if there's a way to help, then we certainly will. And the other thing I'll say to that is, there are ways for us to look at engineers beyond software engineering and software developers, so mechanical engineers and electrical engineers and other folks like that, through
mhm,
certain provincial programs. Specifically in Alberta, as an example, there is an accelerated pathway that's available to a broader set of folks that's not just technology related.
mhm.
So again, if you are in those STEM related fields, we still encourage you to reach out. There's a little bit of difference in terms of how it works and how the timelines work, but it is still possible to make things like that work, just depending on which province we're looking at and which streams we're looking at. So while we're primarily tech focused, I would encourage people to reach out if they're not sure, and we can see if there's a way to make it work.
That's awesome. And you referred to being able to expedite the process. Can you walk me through that? I think one of the things that we've talked about, since we've begun our partnership, is I talk about Mob Squad's ability to sponsor. For the individual and their spouse, and have them in Canada in as little as 6 to 8 weeks, which to me that sounds really aggressive. But when you and I have talked, you've said you've seen it even be possible to do it in 4 weeks, kind of depending on the province and the role. Can you help me understand, like, hey, I got an offer, or I have an employer that wants me to work remotely in Canada. From once that process starts to when the individual is actually physically in Canada working, can you talk about that process a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And so it probably helps to give a little bit of background on Canada's system here, and how we're able to kind of follow the most expedited paths. And so Uh, traditionally, if you want a work permit in Canada, you have to apply for what's called a labor market impact assessment, which basically you have to prove by posting a role for at least a month that you were unable to find a Canadian or permanent resident who could do the job. You then have to submit that to the government. They will review it, which could take anywhere from 1 to 3 months. And then you can apply for a work permit, which could again take another few months. So you're looking at a 4 to 8 month time frame in terms of approval on a typical work permit. There's a program that's been active in Canada for a number of years now, called the Global Talent Stream, which actually expedites that entire process for a subset of workers, mostly in technology. So it's
Hmm.
software engineers, software developers, data scientists, IT consultants, database analysts. So kind of a variety of careers, mostly within technology, where we've already acknowledged that there is a shortage of these workers in the country, and so the entire process of assessing whether you can have a Canadian to fill the job completely changes, and gets expedited into a much shorter time frame. And
Hmm.
so in a pre-COVID world, you could have an application started, so you could sign an employee, let's say on May 1st, And as little as 4 weeks later, they could be coming to Canada to begin their job, because that LMIA process has been reduced to 2 weeks, and the work permit process also gets put to the front of the line at an expedited process that would have taken 2 weeks. I would say post-COVID, there's been some backlog just with processing, understandably, given everything that was going on. So the good news is that everything is still being processed. It's just taking a little longer than it used to. So that's why we're quoting now, about 6 to 8 weeks based on what we're seeing
Hmm.
with folks that are going through the process right now. There are signs that will start improving again. And there's been commitment to get back to kind of that 4 week timeline, but before the end of this year. So we are hoping that we'll start to see that. But even still, if we're talking 8 weeks, it's relatively quick relative to any other system that we've seen in the world for
Right.
getting this done. And we're happy to be working on being able to do that as quick as possible. We've got access to certain channels and certain things in Canada that help us inquire on cases and make sure that things are getting done as expected,
Hmm.
which helps us ensure that we can meet the timelines that we're quoting.
So if I'm a candidate or an employer, just in my mind as I'm trying to put together like a time frame, it sounds like 60 days is probably a good like benchmark from when the process begins to when I could be physically working in Canada.
Yeah, sorry, I lost the line for 2 seconds.
Yeah, no problem. I was just saying that to me, 60 days feels like it's a good benchmark as to when I could be physically working in Canada from when the process was initiated and began.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, like, if I'm an OPT, right, who wasn't selected in the lottery, or I'm holding out hope for possibly being a cap gap, right now would be when I would want to begin looking at getting this process going, especially if my OPT expires in July or August or even September. It would give me an opportunity to meet that period of time.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we always encourage folks to reach out as soon as they can or as soon as they know. So, like, if you're in that exact situation where you're on the final year of your OPT and you didn't get selected in the lottery, whether it's July or August or October or whatever the timing is, we encourage you to reach out now just to allow time as possible. There's obviously some variance with approvals because each case is evaluated independently, and so uh, while we're seeing 8 weeks for most, there's some that have taken longer just because there's additional steps that people may need to go through. So we encourage people to get the process started as soon as possible, because there's also, you want to build in time for us to have discussion with you, with your company, and any other things that need to get done that may have to happen before we're able to actually officially start the process. And
Hmm.
even for folks that have a year remaining and still have one more shot at the lottery, we still think it's worth having the discussion now. I mean, if you are able to win the lottery or get selected in the lottery a year from now, perfect. Stay where you are. But the earlier you get the discussion started, that just means that in a year, when we're doing this at the beginning of April next year, we know that over 70% of people are not going to get selected. And if you've already had these discussions and you're already kind of ready to go, we can pull the trigger much quicker on getting everything started and having that run right away, so that we don't bump up against any deadlines or periods where people have to leave.
Yeah, try to expedite it as much
Hmm.
as possible. Yeah, that's great to hear.
Exactly.
Just wanted to ask everyone out there, if you haven't already, please like this video. Make sure you're subscribed to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube. If you have questions for Arif as we continue our conversation here, we'd like to do a short Q&A at the end of the session. Please feel free to drop those questions or comments in the chat, and I'll try to get to those as time permits. Arif, I wanted to ask you about some of the things that make you guys unique, Mob Squad unique. When we were first introduced, we talked about the partnership that you guys have with the Canadian government. Can you expand on that a little bit and help the audience understand what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a few things here. I mean, uh, to apply for work permits through the global talent stream that I'd mentioned, you do have to be, an employer that has, applied before and they're familiar with and passed certain conditions. And so we are one of those employers that is allowed to use this system. which is important because if there's companies in the U.S. that are thinking about doing this, you do have to have a certain amount of good standing in Canada to be able to do this in some establishment. And part of being able to use this program is demonstrating that you are going to be adding value as a company to the lives of Canadians and permanent residents and to Canada as a whole, which is a pretty extensive process that we've gone through to be able to do that. And so, that's one piece of it. The other is that we've had quite a few folks, helping us through this process. The Minister of Immigration for Canada at the time actually opened our office in 2018 when we launched in Calgary. And with some of the provincial systems that exist that I had mentioned, like the Alberta Accelerated Tech Program, that was also announced at our office by the Alberta Immigration Minister. And so we've tried to help be involved with these programs and make sure that we're front and center with that, so that we can ensure that we're able to partner with these folks when we are submitting applications.
You definitely want to be able to have a good relationship with the individuals processing the applications. There's no doubt about that. Let's talk about some of the benefits of working for you guys. If I'm a candidate, right, and want to understand, like, you know, why Mob Squad over one of the dozen other, PEOs that may be out there. What makes you guys unique from a candidate experience?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm glad you asked that. I mean, like we spend a lot of time thinking about what we can do for our employees, and we take that employment relationship very seriously. Like we don't just want to be an employer on paper or anything like that. We really view everybody that we add to our team as part of the Mob Squad team, and as one of our folks. And some of the things that we do, we aim to pay in the top decile of each market for the roles that people are joining. So we want to make sure people are compensated extremely well for their roles in Canada. We have a really premium benefits package for all employees and their families. That's 100% customizable to each employee, so they can decide how it best suits their needs, and if they have a family, how it would best suit their family's needs. We have state-of-the-art offices across Canada, so we're operational in Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, and Halifax, with offices in each city that are right in the center of the city, and that are super cutting edge and very designed for technology workers to be as productive as possible, but also for people to have a chance to meet other folks, because a lot of the folks that we employ work with different clients, and we want to have some unity with that with our team. And also related to that is we host a lot of events, both in person. We do dinners and we do activities with our folks in each city. And when COVID hit, we moved a lot of that to be virtual and got creative with things like cooking lessons and a virtual comedy show and virtual concerts and things like that. We're starting to move more in person now that things are opening up a little bit, but we again want to foster that sense of community for our employees as well as their families. And the other piece here is that we really take the immigration piece of this seriously as well. So we're not just helping folks obtain their work permits so they can start in Canada, but as soon as they land, we work with each individual in the family on what the best, most reliable, and quickest path to PR would be for them and their family. So
Hmm.
whether that's a federal stream or whether that's a provincial stream in the province that they're in, we will help them obtain PR in the quickest manner possible, which will help them become citizens also as quickly as possible. And the fact is, we don't just look at it as immigration. We know for a lot of people, this is either their first time in Canada or almost always their first time working in Canada. And we really want to help people settle in Canada. So, we'll pick people up at the airport when they arrive. We help them get settled in their new communities. We help them find temporary and permanent accommodation, schools for their kids, jobs for their spouses, and then just getting set up in Canada because it's all new, right? So bank accounts, cell phones, driver's license, all the pieces that kind of come with that.
Hmm.
We know that our people work hard and have a lot to do, and we want to make sure that the other piece of it, with resettlement and all of that is super smooth and easy for them, but also helping to integrate them into their new community and make them feel like Canada is their permanent home.
Mm. And then you have a team that's dedicated to helping with that relocation. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. So we
that's
have folks
so
internally. We've got
so
community leads.
important.
Yeah, exactly. We've got people in every city, and community leads and folks that help with making sure that this is not just a one-time thing of when you arrive, but an ongoing thing where we're constantly checking in and seeing, is there more help we can provide? Is there things we can do? And and we do this bespoke per person, right? So some folks are very independent and figure a lot of this out, before they come. Others, want our help much more extensively and have different requests. And, we're here to accommodate whatever people are looking for,
Mhm.
as much or as little as they need.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about the permanent residency path, right? So
Hmm.
global talent stream (GTS) is the primary avenue, but once I'm living and working in Canada as a full-time employee of MobSquad, I would assume that that path to permanent residency then has a more significant weight as we talk about like the merit-based point system because I'm a full-time employee living and working in Canada. Um, can you give me I know you kinda touched on it briefly, but what does that process look like? I work under Global Talent Stream for a year or 2. Is it 2 to 3, 4 years that I'm looking at before I'd be a permanent resident?
Yeah, so basically, as soon as folks land in Canada, we work with them on figuring out what is their optimal path to permanent residency. And that there's several options here for folks, and we try and pick the one that would get them, their PR in the most expedited and most reliable manner possible. So a few examples here that people will probably be familiar with if they've looked at Canada is there's Express Entry, which is a federal system, and you've talked about this. It's a merit based system, which essentially looks
Mhm.
at certain factors like age, language skills, work experience, as well as whether you
Spouse
have
is
a job
part of
offer in
that,
Canada,
right?
exactly, and then
Yeah.
factors related to your spouse and any ties to Canada as well. So based on that, you're given a score, and then they do regular draws for folks, and those with the highest scores are invited to apply for PR. Those draws have been paused for some time federally, but are expected to
Mhm.
resume this summer. So we do expect that to be, an option that reopens up for people. But in addition to that, there's provincial streams that in Canada, each province has the ability to nominate people for PR based on their particular needs. And in most provinces, technology is a massive need. And so if you were to look at BC, there's a program called the BC Tech Pilot. If you were to look at Alberta, there's the Alberta Accelerated Tech Program. Halifax and Nova Scotia has the Atlantic Immigration Program. And Ontario has the Human Capital Priority Stream. And so all of them have options that are also available provincially,
Mhm.
and those draws have been running throughout, even while the federal ones have been paused. And so, for a lot of the individuals that we've been getting in recently, we've been relying more on the provincial streams because they've been ongoing, and a lot of them are focused specifically on tech, which actually meets the need for our individuals. And so, in terms of timeline, it can be as quick as 6 months after arrival in terms of getting PR. I would say that's on the quickest end. Generally, most folks are able to get PR within a year. There's certain individuals where that can take up to a year and a half, but almost certainly within that work permit time that you have, you're able to get your PR through us, and we fully sponsor this. So we will pay all of the legal and government related fees for PR applications for individuals and their families. And if there's an employer endorsement required, which again goes partly to our partnerships with government, we have those in each province. So we're an eligible employer in BC. We are one of the employers that's allowed to do this in Alberta. We're a designated employer in Halifax or Nova Scotia. So we have all of that infrastructure already set up. So when people do apply, all of these provinces have seen applications from us before, and we're registered as one of those employers that's able to take advantage of these systems.
That's great. And you mentioned, was it 4 provinces that you specifically are working in? You mentioned Alberta, Ontario, Halifax, and Nova Scotia, BC. Is that right?
Yeah, so we're in Vancouver, BC, Calgary, Alberta, Toronto, Ontario, and Halifax, Nova Scotia, as in terms of where our offices are.
Okay, got it. Got it. So 4 different provinces, all with 4 sort of unique streams to which they bring the talent in under. Um, yeah, what I'm hearing, RF, is that kind of a Cadillac offering here, if you will, a car analogy here for those in the U.S. and that is, you take care of your employees. You're paying, in the top percentage of compensation in Canada. the services from the support staff for individuals that are picking up and moving their lives, right? There's a lot of thought and offerings of support that are involved in that from your perspective, from your employees, team events, and really kind of one of these things where they're not necessarily, it's not a number. This is an extended offering for those who may not have another option in the US, and those looking outside of the US, that want to seek a better opportunity, right, in North America, with Canada being one of those primary destinations. Just
Mhm.
wanted to mention again, if you haven't already, please like this video. Make sure you're subscribed to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube. If you have any questions or comments for Arif, we've got about 15 or so minutes left here. We'd love to take a couple questions or comments, but I would like to continue the conversation here, Arif, and I want to move on to, um, we've highlighted tech is kind of the primary focus. We talked about software engineers and software developers. This past Friday during the H1B Guy News for the week ending on May 6th, I highlighted a full stack developer, and that was looking for an individual with JavaScript, TypeScript, React, and like Node and Python on the back end. So very technical coding type role. Um, Outside of like the full stack React, are you seeing demand in like machine learning, and DevOps and cloud? Where else are you seeing the demand from companies in Canada that may be looking to hire someone in Canada through a firm?
Yeah, so I mean, we see demand across the tech stack. I mean, as you mentioned, the full stack position is one that's been challenging for companies to fill, and it's one that if you have that experience, we very much encourage applications because that's where we're seeing a lot of interest. But we do see interest across a lot of the things that you mentioned. So machine learning engineers, data scientists, cloud security engineers, Java developers, front end positions as well. We're seeing demand across quite a lot of software developer and software engineering positions. Um, we also, through like I mentioned, through the global talent stream, are able to bring in folks from a broader set than just software engineering. So computer and system information managers, mathematicians and statisticians, as you had mentioned earlier, information systems analysts, like
Mhm.
IT consultants, database analysts, but also web designers and developers, and even some visual effects folks as well, and digital media
Mhm.
designers. So it's a broader range than that. And if you are working with a company and they're willing to have you work from Canada, those are certain occupations that we would look at and likely be able to help.
Mhm.
But for positions that are we're recruiting for ourselves, um, if you were to go to our website, which is just mobsquad.io/join team, you'll see we always have between 10 and 15 positions that are listed there, and those are the ones that we're most actively recruiting for. So we have clients that are telling us we have a need here. Can you help us build a team? We put those positions up, and update them quite frequently. So if you see a position there that you feel qualified for, we would certainly encourage you to apply to those. And if you're able to make it through kind of our technical and behavioral screens, then we would put your profile
Mhm.
in front of clients and basically try and find positions for you, as soon as we can.
Yeah, I've got the link right here in the
Okay.
chat. And also for the full stack developer position that I mentioned, there's a link in my video description. There's also a link to, if you're just looking to find out how do I qualify. There's a link in the video description below as well. Um, One of the things I find really interesting, specifically about the full stack developer role that you have,
Mhm.
um, when I look at it, and you alluded to this, but I really wanted to hit on this because this is where it comes back to how important talent analytics and talent automation are, and what's really defining kind of the new age of recruiting now in this digitally global society that we're all living and working in. And that is, when individuals look to go to apply to a posting that you have, not only do they have to provide a resume, they've got to complete a video interview, which I'm sure is a communication and presentation, and then there's also a technical coding assessment as well. So here you have a resume, a video interview, and a coding assessment. Um, are you doing that for not only just the full stack, but some of the other postings that you have as well?
Yeah, so it does depend on the role. We try to do, the appropriate screening process based on the role. So there's some positions that, don't lend themselves well to coding tests per se. So you won't see that. But if there are positions where there's specific kind of, coding languages or frameworks that are required, you may see, that technical process as part of the screening process. So it is kind of customized by position, and our talent team does a really good job here of trying to figure out, for each role, what are we actually looking for, and what do we need to see so that we feel comfortable, creating profiles for folks and putting them in front of our clients. And so that's really what it's designed to do. We're here to help with the whole process. We know that there can be, additional steps in certain cases. We just really want to make sure that we're getting the most qualified people that we can for these roles, because we do get, thousands of applications for the roles that we put up. But also that we're setting people up for success, right? So that when we do put them in front of clients, or when they are, working on things, they're fully able to perform at their best. And throughout our interview process, we try and provide guidance and as much clarity and help as possible. And if people have questions, we're always there to help with that, so that people do succeed when they apply for this process, if they're assuming that they're qualified for the roles.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges when we talk about acquisition, right? Is how do you determine who's qualified and who's not? And I think, you know, the coding assessment for me is one of those that will eliminate a lot of candidates very quickly, and kind of separates the wheat from the chaff, if you will. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the quality of life in Canada.
Hmm.
I think one of the biggest things that I always joke about is, I'm a Southern boy that's never lived further north than Atlanta, Georgia, and I have to think that the cold air up there and I probably wouldn't go very well together. Can you help me understand? I guess maybe talk a little bit about some of the misconceptions of living in Canada and what the quality of life is like there.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've lived in Canada for most of my life, so I can certainly speak to that. And I've actually spent time in Vancouver, where I am now, but also in Toronto and in Calgary. So I've kind of covered quite a bit of the country in terms of living. Um, I think it's a great place to live. You'll always see when there are rankings for cities. Often three or four Canadian cities are in the top 10, because the quality of life is quite high, right? So there's really strong safety, really good schools, healthcare is covered, and those that do move with us do are part of the national healthcare system. We make sure we pay any premiums for that, so that you do get access to that. And the cities are vibrant and multicultural and super lively, and very welcoming of new folks, which is important to us. We've picked the cities that we're in quite carefully, because we want to make sure that they're welcoming to newcomers, and are a great place to settle if you're raising a family, or a great place to be if you're coming on your own as well. And part of our recommendation for where people live and where they go is dependent on some of that. Um, I mean, we obviously get the conception that Canada is very cold. Depending on where you're
Mm.
coming from, that may or may not be true. Like if you're in New York, Toronto is a very similar climate to New York, so you won't be out of place there. And Vancouver has very similar weather to Seattle. It's on the west coast, so it's certainly doesn't get those 6 foot snowfalls, or or minus really crazy minus temperatures out here. So depending on where you are, that varies a lot. And part of what comes with that is great ski season and availability with that as well. So
Mhm.
I'd say we try and work with folks to help them figure out in Canada where would be best for them. If they're coming alone, if they're coming with a family, what their salary range would be, where we think actually would be well suited to them, and also where they're coming from as well, right? Whether that's the U.S. or abroad, we try to pick places that they will enjoy, and also take their input on where
Mhm.
might make sense.
Everyone always tells me I've got to go to Banff before I
Yes,
can't. So that's a bucket list item for me for
absolutely.
sure.
There's beautiful
Um,
mountains and oceans on either end, so there's a lot of natural beauty in the country.
Yeah, goals, right? We all gotta have them, Arif, that's for sure. I wanted to ask you about some of the, like, latest trends that you're seeing, maybe over the last, like, 3 or 4 months, specifically in Canada. I know you mentioned Express Entry potentially coming back online here, maybe in July, but are there any trends or anything that we'd like to make the audience aware of that you're seeing right now?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think some of it was touched on actually in the Wall Street Journal article that you referenced. Canada is definitely growing as a technology hub,
Mhm.
and Toronto specifically, I think was the most or one of the most uh, centered places around attracting technology talent over the last 5 years, and that's that I could say the same is true in Calgary and Vancouver and Halifax as well. So we're certainly seeing more of a tech focus in Canada. And that's reflected in some of those provincial technology streams that I mentioned, where there is a legitimate focus on bringing more technology workers into the country and into those provinces, recognizing that there's a need for that here. So that's certainly a trend that we're seeing. We're also seeing just more interest. I can say this personally as our company, from people wanting to come to Canada just because it's so difficult with some of the U.S. streams to
Yep.
get in. Just as you said, there were 480,000 applications this year for 85,000 spots in the H1B lottery, which just means that you know 350 to 400,000 people are not going to be able to get selected, and they're going to want to go somewhere. And so Canada's certainly become attractive for that, but also globally, because it is a merit-based PR system, and because there is a path to PR that is based on points rather than country of origin or anything like that. It's become really, really attractive for folks around the world to consider Canada as an option, and especially because the US is right there, and there's some advantages to being in Canada, and that if you are working with a US client, there's that time zone congruency, there's that business
Mhm.
culture congruency, there's obviously same language, and being able to visit the teams on either side of that is a lot easier than if you were abroad. It's really helped attract additional talent to Canada and help people want to consider Canada as an option. So I'd say it's a large and substantially growing tech scene out here that people will certainly feel like they're a part of if they were to choose Canada.
No, thank you for sharing that. That's one of the things for me that, I've been tracking very closely. And you look at the number of tech jobs added, and Canada actually edged the US in 2021 on that piece of data.
Hmm.
Um, but it goes back to, one of the things you and I talked about was, do you just want US folks, or do you want folks that are globally, right? The message is both. And I wanted to just kind of share this link here, which is your case studies. And I think this is a great link. I'm going to bring that up right now. So it's mobsquad.io/case hyphen studies, and this will show you some of the testimonials of individuals that have uh, come to Canada via Mob Squad. And it's a pretty diverse group of individuals, and the skill sets are really diverse too. So I advise you to please check that out. There's a lot of good personal stories and testimonies on there. I found myself kind of clicking through every one earlier this week. So please make sure to check that out. Again, that'll be in the chat here. I wanted to really quickly talk about two other things, and then we've got a question, and then we'll go ahead and start to wrap this up. But
Sure.
um, I mentioned to you a couple weeks ago that I love the slogan "Join the Squad," right? And I think it really talks about a lot of your core values in 3 words, and that is you want individuals to have a quality of life, be compensated for that, but also have freedom to remove themselves from certain anxieties that are in place here as it surrounds high skilled immigrants in the US. So I just wanted to get that in, that I absolutely love the slogan. And you're going to hear a lot more of that from me going forward, as we talk about join the squad, right? So we did have a quick question come in. I'd like to just pull it up here. It
Yeah.
says, hey, if a candidate fails one of your screening interviews, do you provide constructive feedback where he or she failed? And if they did fail, can they apply again? So I would imagine this is referring to this coding assessment, right? We talk about, we all have different ways of assessing talent, and talent analytics, and these coding tests can sometimes be very difficult to crack. So, what are your thoughts on this question, Arif?
Yeah, so I mean, the answer to both of the questions is yes. So, we have, like I said, a custom interview process for each position that we post that generally consists of behavioral and technical elements. And also, if you're working with clients and you have interviews there, there may be other pieces that go along with that. Once we do create a profile and put you in front of folks, but our goal is to provide feedback to folks so they know, where they may have been, unsuccessful in the process or what the driver might have been for that. And, if you're not getting as much detail as you want, we provide our email address with the process and
Hmm.
encourage people to request anything. And we're happy to provide as much information as we can so that people are successful. I mean, ultimately our goal is to bring in the best and brightest candidates here. And so if we could help people, be more successful with that, we'd certainly love to do it. And people are more than welcome to apply again or to apply to different positions, right? So maybe you apply to a position that wasn't exactly right for you, and that's why it wasn't successful. If another position
Hmm.
comes up that's more applicable, you can certainly apply there. Or even if it's the same position, like if it was a coding related issue and you've since gained additional skill or worked on certain things, you can definitely apply again. And you'd be evaluated again based on that application. And so, um, yeah, certainly we're happy to help people there. And just a little bit that you touched on earlier that I just wanted to hit on is, for those that are abroad that are not working with U.S. companies, or those that are working with U.S. companies but can't, uh, move with that company. That's where these positions come into play. So that link that you provided around joining our team, we build out a talent roster of folks that we then try to pair with our clients, uh, based on those skill sets. And so, the easiest case for us is when you are able to move with your current company. But in those cases where
Hmm.
that's not possible, that's why we have this talent roster, so we can try and find that match between you and our clients, if you're not able to come with your current company, or if you're abroad and don't have a company that you can come with. And
Hmm.
so, that's kind of how that exists.
And the time frame doesn't really change between the two, right? If you're finding me a job in Canada versus relocating my job to Canada, the time frame's still similar, correct?
Yeah, the immigration time frame is exactly the same. The only piece that takes longer potentially though is that we have to find that match, right? So,
Yeah.
we're obviously not able to do that for every individual that applies, but we do our best for those that make it through the process to see how we can find those matches. And once we've got somebody on board with wanting to work with a client, then we can start that immigration process. So there is additional time to get on the roster and find that client match, of course. And no necessarily guarantee that we can do it, but if we
Yeah.
can, once we get that immigration process started, it's exactly the same.
Yeah, you're going to try to make the best match possible for them and your client, right? It just that's
Exactly.
recruiting 101, no matter how we want to spin it. It just is the basic foundation of what I've done for the better part of my 18-year career. So,
Right.
Arif, man, what a great conversation here. Really appreciate you coming on this afternoon to talk about Mob Squad, talk about your service offerings, what makes you guys unique, what's going on in Canada. Excuse me. And, ultimately, I wanted to just let everyone know, um, there are links in the video description, to uh, find out how to qualify with Mob Squad. There's a link to the senior full stack developer that I mentioned. I've also got your LinkedIn profile in there, Arf, as well. So if anyone sees this and wants to follow you or submit a connection request, please make sure to reference the H1B guys so that Arf knows how you found him. And we're going to continue this conversation more in the future. Probably look at having you on quarterly. We've talked about to continue to talk about the trends and the job volume that you're seeing and the changes in the regulation. So just really appreciate you taking the time here to jump in today and have this conversation. Just really appreciate it.
No, thank you as well, and thanks for people for tuning in. And as you said, we'd be happy to continue doing these. We'll actually try and bring on some of the engineers so you can hear directly from them. Some of them that were featured in the success stories. We'll bring on folks from our talent team to walk through more of that process. And so you won't just have to hear from me; you can hear from others who can
Yeah,
attest
I
to
think
this.
that
And
makes sense, right?
yeah,
Like, no better way to hear it than from firsthand from folks that have gone through it. And also the other side, the team that helps make that happen, right? Your
right.
transition team, your recruiting team. We've got a lot planned and looking forward to continuing this conversation. Like I said, please, if you're interested in finding out more about Mob Squad, use the links in the video description below. They're also on the H1BGuy.com. You can find those links. Connect with Arif on LinkedIn. Make sure you reference me, though, because he may not accept your connection invite if you don't. But I'm going to go ahead and close us out here today, Arif, and just let everyone know that today's live stream was brought to you by Mob Squad. If you are a technology professional facing U.S. work visa related challenges, if your OPT is about to expire and you were not selected in the H1B lottery, Mob Squad has a solution. They help technology professionals facing these challenges in the US work with their current company nearshore from Canada, as well as technology professionals from around the world who are seeking an opportunity to find a rewarding career in North America. Through their unique partnership with the Canadian government, they can obtain a Canadian work permit for you and your spouse in as little as 6 to 8 weeks. Whether you're looking to stay working with your current US company or you want to find a new opportunity in Canada, please find out how the team at Mob Squad can help you, as I mentioned in the link in the video description below. Join the squad. And also by PERM-ads.com, the industry leader in providing a seamless experience for employers and immigration attorneys navigating the complex PERM recruitment ad phase of the labor certification process. If you're looking to reduce your costs and overhead associated with PERM labor certification recruitment advertising, let my good friend Carl at PERM-ads.com help you. And also by Syndesis and Path to Canada, the ideal plan B for high skilled immigrants currently located in the US whose status may be uncertain. Just wanted to ask you again one last time to please like this video, subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube, and click the bell for notifications so that you're notified anytime we post new content here to this channel or go live like we did here today on May 11th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. If you've made it this far, I just want to say thank you all for taking time to watch this live stream. Or if you're watching or listening to this at a later date, I really appreciate your support. Arif, look forward to continuing the conversation with you. Thank you so much again. I'm Robert. I'm the H1B guy, your global source for all things H1B.